Moody Radio presents Christmas with Rebecca St. James. Sponsored by Compassion International and Christian Healthcare Ministries. Join us at Grace Church of Middleburg Heights on December 5th at 7 p.m. Celebrate Christ's birth with Rebecca St. James. A night of worship and wonder with special guest pastor Scott Lessing, Associate Pastor of Life Stage Ministries. Tickets are online at moodyradio.org/RSJ.
Moody Radio Cleveland. Broadcasting since 1958. WCRF Cleveland. WVMS Sandusky. WVML Millersburg. WVMN Newcastle. WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
I just wanted to say thank you for being here.
Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin visited Ukraine yesterday as Russia continues gaining ground in the war-torn country. It's 6 o'clock. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Austin met with Ukrainian President Zelensky and the nation's defense minister in Kyiv. Austin announced that the U.S. would send Ukraine a new $400 million shipment of arms. An Akron police officer caught on video striking a 16-year-old high school student in the head has been placed on administrative leave. The incident happened last Wednesday at Firestone Community Learning Center. And early in-person voting hours are being extended across Ohio. The Ohio Secretary of State's office says that beginning this week, polling locations will now be open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then, starting this weekend, polls will be open on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and on Sunday, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. I'll be right back with sports and weather.
Counseling, it's what God created you to do. When you earn your Master of Arts in Clinical Mental Health Counseling from Moody Bible Institute, you'll be equipped to help others become who God created them to be. Study at Moody's Chicago or Michigan campus, where you can secure certificates in the areas of marriage, family, and couples counseling, as well as trauma-informed counseling. Learn more and get started on your counseling career today. Go to moody.edu/counseling.
In sports, Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson will be out for the rest of the season after he ruptured his Achilles during Sunday's game. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Mostly sunny this morning, then becoming partly cloudy. High temperatures in the upper 70s. At last check, clear skies, 54 degrees in Cleveland, 50 Akron and Canton, 45 in Youngstown.
It's time for your moron moment.
If I could turn back time, what would I do? Well, in a sense, you can turn back time. You can look up your first ever post on Facebook. Open your profile on the web, click the Filters button above your own posts, and then fill in the Go-To information. It may take some guesswork, but you can browse back to the month and year that you signed up. Mine was October of 2009. You may want to delete some of those posts if they're a little too cringy, okay? And that's your Moron Moment.
Moron.
And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 6:02 with Moody Radio.
Yeah, so my husband Jimmy works at Chick-fil-A, and the other day he and one of his coworkers just randomly brought up the show. And so they're chatting about some discussion that we had. And so this guy gives his opinion, his 2 cents on what we were talking about. And Jimmy goes, "Oh, yeah, Daria would agree with you on that." And this guy just looks at him and goes, "How do you know?" Says, "She's my wife."
And he had no idea.
He had no clue.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
You're listening to Moody Radio, WCRF. It is 6:07 on a Tuesday morning. It's so good to see you guys. How you doing?
Good.
Doing pretty good today. How's Daria?
Daria's doing well.
Turns out you've never owned a lint roller, which is random, but it's a problem for you when you own cats, I guess, huh?
Yeah, over the weekend. I don't know why this even stuck out to me. I made the mistake of leaving a black skirt and a black shirt on my dresser. I wore the skirt on Sunday, and I wore the shirt yesterday. And we have cats, and they slept on my black clothes like they do.
Ooh.
And so it was, I think, Saturday. I said to Jimmy, I said, we've been married for 4 years. Why do we not own a lint roller?
What was his answer?
His answer was something like, good question. We probably should get that. So after work, he went out and he got a twin pack.
Good for
Way to
him.
go. You're set.
Yep.
Now,
Good for a while.
I can't imagine, as long as you've had cats and you never had a lint roller.
I don't have a lot of black clothes, so I don't think I know I've needed it before. I think we used tape in the past.
Okay.
I
That
don't,
works.
I don't know why we didn't own one before.
Yeah, Dana uses it every day. Of course, our cat is white. And
Yeah.
so those hairs show up on everything.
Yeah, our cat has a lot of white in her, and she's the one that likes to just like I had a couple other things that I hadn't quite put away yet. She picked just the black items.
Yeah. I think cats, their main reason for existence, to rub hair on you, to throw up on carpets and miss the tile and hardwood and, easy to clean places.
Yeah,
And third is to maneuver so they can stick their butt in your face.
pretty much. So one of our cats, she has like a designated throw up spot.
Oh, nice.
We have lived in 4 houses since we got her, and in every single house, it has been under the guest bed.
Oh, wow.
just so you can't find it for a few days?
Yeah, because we never go in there. Once in a while, I'll go in there and I'll go, oh, I should probably clean that up.
Cats are... And people still want cats.
Yeah.
And they, also, by the way, have some sort of radar for people that don't like cats.
It's a mission. Like they like a good challenge, especially the really smart ones. So they see someone that doesn't like them, and it is their mission in life to sway them.
But my very favorite kind of cat is where you go to visit somebody for the first time, and you're like, hey, you get welcome to my house. Oh, thanks. Yeah. You have any pets? Oh, yeah, we have a cat. Oh, great. I'd like to meet it. Nope. It doesn't like people.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, then why do you have it? You're a person.
It doesn't like people other than the homeowners.
Really?
Some of them don't even like those people either.
That's
Just
probably
depends on
true.
the cat you get.
Wow.
Yeah, ours tends to disappear when other people are around.
I think she liked me when I was at your house that time.
She probably did.
Now, shifting gears, how's the lovely Dana doing? She was down for the count.
Yes, she went to see the doctor. She thought that she had torn something or, done some further damage. But turns out that after you have meniscus surgery, it's not uncommon for arthritis to flare up.
Oh, no.
And for some reason, it just did right then. And so they're, going through some procedures. She had it aspirated to check some things. And but it's probably something that she's just going to have to live with for a while.
Oh, Dana.
And
at 35, you would think this would not be an issue.
I know. And you'd wonder how a 63-year-old man is married to a 35-year-old woman, but, things happen.
If you don't sense sarcasm font and you're new to us, then I don't know
Yeah.
what you're doing. Also, I woke up this morning to everyone's favorite thing, go to flick on the coffee maker, and it's broken.
Oh, no.
Oh.
But I determined to not let it ruin my day, and
Good.
one of my kids has us deposit the extra coffee into a carafe in the fridge for their iced coffee.
Uh-huh.
So I had everyone's second favorite, which is Folgers with well water reheated.
After it's a couple days old, I'll bet.
Correct.
Yeah, that doesn't sound... I like iced coffee. That doesn't sound good to me, though. Just sitting in the fridge like that.
I mean, it wasn't great, but it did its
Yeah.
job. How about that?
Yeah. I've done that in my 20s a lot. Save stuff, reheat it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do that just with what's sat in the pot all day.
Yeah. Use the same grounds for 2 or 3.
Oh,
Ugh.
did you do that?
Ew. I'd rather go without.
Does it get weaker?
Yes,
over time?
Yes, it would.
It's
would've
more like
happened.
tea the second and third time. bad tea the third time.
Well, and then yesterday I had the experience where I, once again, if you are a middle school teacher, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. I don't know how you do it. I went to an award ceremony for my middle schooler, ran cross country. The kids were so sweet. I got to just be in the back of the classroom after school while the teacher / coach, kind of did little awards and organized the kids. Middle school kids are a lot.
Yeah.
I sat back there going, I'm so glad that I don't do this. I can hardly handle being silent in the back of the room. They're, again, good kids, but wow, the energy, the awkwardness, the wow.
Odor.
It's just a lot. So God bless you if you do that with your life. I don't know how you do that.
My dad, at one point, was a substitute teacher, and for, I think, a day and a half, he got assigned to a middle school, and he came home looking like he'd gone through a war.
Yeah, I mean, I taught high school, totally different ball game. Now, elementary school teachers, they're working hard too, but middle school, they should get some sort of hazard pay. Can you imagine being like locked in a building with a whole bunch of depending on how the school district works, like 6th, 7th, and 8th graders?
Those are honestly some of the worst years of your life, I think.
For all people.
Yes.
For all time.
Yeah.
But they made it, and I made it through the after-school event. Good. So, well, we got a busy day today. If you have questions about Medicare, I know it's that time of year where people are really having to think through this. Our friend David Mullane of Yost Insurance will be with us from 8:30 to 9 today. So if you want to text in those questions, we'll set them aside. 440-546-2255. 440-546-2255. Again, 8:30 to 9, he'll be with us. We'll get an update from 8 to 8:30 from Dr. Glenn Deurr. He's a professor of international studies at Cedarville University. Definitely have to talk about Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, the whole deal. There have been assassination attempts and assassinations. And then I was like, he wants to talk about India and Canada. And I was like, what? Have you heard about this?
No.
Like, usually Canada's Royal Mounted Police are just kind of like, hey there, guys. Watch out there for the crime, okay, then? They're not doing a whole lot. They came out with the Prime Minister of Canada and accused India of, running crazy crime stuff in Canada.
That's the literal opposite side of the globe.
Yeah, they're saying that what's going on is that there's a criminal conspiracy from the Indian government inside Canada going after people inside of Canada who are critical of India.
Wow.
Wild.
And you just still go, what?
Yeah. I don't think about India often enough to really be critical of them.
And they're worried about critiquing Canada. Okay. Well, we'll find out more about that.
No, there's rabble-rousers in Canada.
Watch out there, Hoser, right? It's 6:15 coming up in a couple of minutes. It's not often you see Holmes County, Ohio, get tons of attention from the Wall Street Journal.
Oh.
Like multiple page write-up about how they've done something no one else in the country can possibly do. And economists are like, we need to study this.
Okay.
I'll explain it in detail, and we'll hear about what's happening in Holmes County here in just a minute.
Merry Christmas!
Moody Radio presents Christmas with Rebecca St. James. Sponsored by Compassion International and Christian Healthcare Ministries. Join us at Grace Church of Middleburg Heights on December 5th at 7 p.m. Celebrate Christ's birth with Rebecca St. James. A night of worship and wonder with special guest pastor Scott Lessing, Associate Pastor of Life Stage Ministries. Tickets are online at moodyradio.org/RSJ.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you could get both, why not? Especially when it comes to health care. And that is MediShare. You get both. Many families save $500 a month with MediShare, and that's huge. But it's also true that people wind up way more satisfied, too. The member satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. That's because MediShare works. It has for more than 30 years. It's a community of Christians who have shared more than $5 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth. They love the huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price in 2 minutes. Here's the number. Just call 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE. 877-58-BIBLE.
Good morning, Cleveland. Thanks for choosing us to help you start your day. It's Mornings with Brian.
I think you got to realize God loves you, has a plan for your life. He's put you in this position. And if he's put you here, don't take yourself out just by your own self-doubt. If he doesn't want you operating this board, in my case, then he would make it evident, and Josh would say, look, we've had enough of your mistakes. You're out, buddy. We'll get somebody younger and more capable.
Oh, you stop this.
Pitch you out to the old folks' home.
We don't receive that, right?
We don't receive that. That's the imposter syndrome talking. Pastor, how do you battle imposter syndrome?
Prayer, lots of prayer. I'm ultimately where I'm at because this is what God wants me to be. Try to stay focused on the fact that regardless of what I may feel from a workspace standpoint, I know the work that I put in. So it's like it creeps in, but it's also not. You know how you have I feel like you can have imposter syndrome because you really shouldn't be in the room and people think you should be in the room, and then you can have imposter syndrome and it's like, no, but I actually should be in the room, but the enemy's just in my brain. And just trying to remind myself okay, God got me, and wait, I know I put this.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
It's Ben Fuller on WCRF. It's 6:21, and we are so looking forward to seeing you guys on December 5th. We have our Christmas concert with Rebecca St. James. It's sponsored by Compassion International and Christian Healthcare Ministries. It's at Grace Church in Middleburg Heights. Again, that's December 5th. If you want to get some more information and get your tickets, you can text the word concert to 440-546-2255.
Well, and Lauren is out. And there happens to be this perfect convergence now of Rebecca St. James and Ron and me. We're recording an interview with her right after the show.
And I told you to behave yourself.
It's going to be difficult. She's Australian.
Mm-hmm. She is.
You have a short window with her. You need to talk about things related to Christmas and the concert and not stereotypes about a country I don't even think she's lived in for a very long time. I'm pretty sure the entire family is now citizens of the U.S.
When you said talk about, I thought you meant walkabout.
Walkabout, yeah.
No.
I was going to be like, hey, Rebecca, nice to be on the show. Hey, are you having Vegemite right now?
You ever had that? It's disgusting.
It looks and smells horrific.
I've never even seen it.
Like, we had some sort of international like culture day when I was in the second grade, and they gave this to us. So like, this is Australian peanut butter. This tastes nothing like peanut butter. Okay,
Yeah.
it was so bad. Like, I mean, my teacher just happened to have a box of Fruit Loops in class from another project, and she had to pass out Fruit Loops because we were all complaining that the taste wouldn't leave our mouths.
Yeah, it's like pulverized mushy vegetables in a tube.
It was.
And you squirt it onto like crackers.
I don't know what it is, what it's made out of. I don't care. It was
Well, we
so
can ask
gross.
her. We can ask her about
Or
it.
you could just use Google.
I don't know. We're going to have an Australian.
Get the down to earth, true meaning of this.
And Rebecca, is it Melbourne or Melbourne?
True.
See, we could
Again,
do a whole-
Google can help with these things.
Do you love the band Men at Work, Rebecca? Are you going to do any Men at Work hits? We'll work through that. So, hey, I was looking through things, minding my own business.
Not likely.
Got to the Wall Street Journal, and they had an entire piece highlighting, with economists wondering what's going on here, Holmes County, Ohio. In fact, the whole thing starts in Mount Hope, Ohio.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, goodness gracious, that's in our listening area.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on here? So I want to read portions of this just because it's not often you see Holmes County highlighted by the Wall Street Journal.
Right.
So here we go. At age 32, Ryan Hirschberger has achieved success far beyond his modest roots. He launched a furniture business with two cousins a decade ago and now runs a company that distributes its solid wood tables and chairs nationwide.
Ooh.
From a second-floor corner office, he presides over a 65,000-square-foot factory floor where dozens of workers assemble the pieces. One is his dad, Wyman Hirschberger, 67, a carpenter, who expresses pride over his son's rise. He's a go-getter, he said, and that's what it takes. It helps that Ryan Hirschberger lives and works in Holmes County, Ohio, America's standout for economic mobility by one measure. Millennials there are doing better than its generation ahead of them. Younger people across the nation are contending with crushing housing costs and student loan debt. Only recently have they seen a burst in financial stability after struggling to keep up with previous generations. Something different has been happening in the rolling green hills of Holmes County. Between 2005 and 2019, average household income in Holmes County rose 24% for 27-year-olds raised in lower-income homes. That's roughly $36,000 to $45,000 in inflation-adjusted 2023 dollars. That puts millennials who are now in their early 30s far ahead of their Gen X counterparts when they were there at that age. Millennials and Holmes County are doing better than anywhere else in America.
Good for them.
Guess I need to move again.
Isn't that wild? Like, if the economists are going, let's see where millennials are doing the best. Let's see. Oh, Holmes County, Ohio? Yep. Holmes County, by the way, has the biggest relative jump for any U.S. county where such 27-year-olds in 2005 already earned at least the median household income, according to Wall Street Journal analysts of data released this year by a team of Harvard University economists. I love it that Harvard's looking at Holmes County. Younger millennials from middle and high-income families here also notched big gains, according to the data. Its status as an economic mobility darling is notable because of, by some standards, it should be struggling. It sits far from any interstates and lacks urban centers. Roughly half of its 44,000 residents are
Amish.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
Part of a Christian community that eschews varying degrees of modern technology. And because Amish children typically stop school after 8th grade, the county's educational attainment in young 25-year-olds ranks last in Ohio.
Wow, I didn't realize that, the 8th grade thing.
Yeah, so, by the way, the Wall Street Journal is calling it a Christian community. I think there would be debate among theologians as to whether the Amish would be considered Christians.
Okay.
We'd have to dig into the theology, but many of them would believe in salvation for their exclusive group. which is not fitting with Christian theology. I am not an expert in Amish theology, nor do I feign that, so don't quote me on this.
Topic for another day.
Yes, and I've actually talked to people who've left Amish culture, and I've asked, is there resources I can read on this to learn more about it? Everyone's like, boy, nope, because each group is so different. Now, if you've left the Amish, or you are Amish or whatever, and you want to send us a note, if you're Amish, you probably can't send us a note, but if you
they can still use the post office, can't they?
Well, sure, yeah, you could do that. Here we are in Brecksville. But nonetheless, isn't that wild? So we've got the most economically mobile group of millennials are in Holmes County, which is half Amish, and lowest in Ohio in educational attainment.
It's really interesting.
Any guesses on what would account for this?
Maybe because they stop school so early, they have more time to build up a career and build up wealth.
That's part of it. As it says in the article, what's going on? Economists and local business leaders believe much of the progress stems from entrepreneurial growth fueled by cooperation and innovation, all buttressed, which is my favorite word, by tight family and community ties. So he says you don't have to be Amish to do this, but essentially it's a tight social network with effective social organizations, chambers of commerce, business organizations, other kinds of nonprofits. But bottom line, I think it's a different approach to life.
Yeah.
In a struggle of economy. Part of it is families stay. It's hard for me to look at that reality knowing I've moved across the country twice. But families stay. Families support each other.
And it's less of a individual, rugged individualism and more of a how can we as a family do better? How can we as a community do better? And so there's more thinking about the other person and not just, every dollar I can get for myself. It doesn't matter if it hurts my brother or sister.
And that's part of what I want to point at, because what they have here is a quote from a guy. His name is Steve Miller, and he runs a roofing business in this area that's been highlighted by the Wall Street Journal, a national periodical on economics, primarily in business. And he said something that I think points to the key of success of Holmes County in a difficult economic season that Christians in general can look at. We'll do that together here after we take a quick break.
Hi, my name is Joe Abraham, and this is Pause for Prayer. Have you ever been in this place before? Relationships are falling apart. My work career has been devastated, and my health every day seems like another trial. You start to get very weary, very discouraged, and finally doubt and questioning sets in. Your mind is bombarded with fleeting thoughts. I thought God loved me. Where is he when I need him most? It seems like my unbelieving friends never suffer. Wrong. Read Psalm 34. It sounds like a mini version of the great story of Job. A righteous and blameless man, Job experienced overwhelming testing from Satan and despairing counsel from his friends. How did he stay afloat? Let's pause today and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we bless your holy name and thank you for your committed love to your children and all who trust in the sacrifice of your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. Your amazing grace has given us not only far beyond what we deserve, but also what we could never accomplish on our own. We thank you for the Word of God and the realness of it. Life can be challenging because of the fall of man, even for the saved. But the reality of life is that we still deal with discouragement and often need help. Job suffered great loss to his possessions, his family, and even his personal health. Added to that was poor counsel that he received from his friends. At times he felt like quitting and even defended his own righteousness and blamelessness in front of a holy God. May we, like Job, remember this great life marker. I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth. And after my skin has been destroyed, yet I will see in my flesh God. It doesn't get any better than that. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Hello, Roland Warren here with your Pro Abundant Life Minute. Have you ever wondered why Christ endured standing before Pontius Pilate before he was crucified? As always, Christ did this to teach us something important. In this case, 3 things. First, the dynamics and limitations of politics. Second, the problem with politicians who don't value truth, and third, the power of the crowd. But what does this have to do with the abortion issue for us as pro-abundant life Christians? You see, Christ never expected Pilate to save him, so we should not expect politics on the life issue to save us either. Rather, we must mobilize Christ's church to win the battle over abortion, helping people choose life, build strong families, and become disciples of Jesus Christ. For more pro-abundant life insights, visit care-net.org.
Get out of the sheets and into the streets. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian, Moody Radio Cleveland, 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
That's Cutlass with Strong Tower. It's WCRF Mornings with Brian at 6:36 on a Tuesday morning. Hey, if you have some questions about Medicare, go ahead and get those in, because later this morning at about 8:30, we've got David Mullane in from Yost Insurance. He's going to be talking about the annual enrollment period, what to know about some insurance plans. And again, if you have those questions, go ahead and text those in now to 440-546-2255.
So it turns out, according to Harvard economists and the Wall Street Journal, millennials in Holmes County are doing better than any other county in America in terms of upward mobility. They're doing better than the previous generation in an era where, honestly, millennials and Gen Z are really struggling. Mm-hmm. You and Lauren talk about this a lot, how many challenges you face.
Mm-hmm.
And it's half Amish of the 44,000 people in Holmes County.
Right.
Half Amish. And so economists are thinking it has to be, in many respects, due to an Amish way of life. Part of it is there's a lot of community-centric thinking, as Ron pointed out before the break. But also families stay together. So like a couple of the businesses highlighted, it's like 3 cousins started together. Mm-hmm. And where'd they get the money? Their uncle.
Right.
So the families stay together, they support each other. But there was one quote in here that I think really points to something interesting about how they do things differently. So this guy, Steve Miller, he's 31. I don't know if he has a band, but maybe he should. He runs Grand Design Roofing. He started it in his 20s, and now they have 6 workers. They had a boom during COVID, but things have calmed down now. And here's what he said. If we've got plenty of jobs, I just go to my competitor and I give him a couple jobs.
Oh, wow.
Says Miller, who's Amish. I'm here so my employees can make a good, honest living. I'm not here to collect all the wealth I can absolutely collect.
Mm-hmm.
That is a dramatically different approach to life and business.
Oh, yeah.
Than the rest of America. Can you imagine if like a store or some sort of manufacturing companies like got more orders than they need, that they went to their competitor?
It reminds me of Miracle on 34th Street, where the Santa Claus character is at one store, let's say Macy's, and he says, oh, we don't have it, but they do over at Higbee's across the street. And he'd send them next door. And at first everybody freaked out, but then they realized customers love it, so it became their big PR move.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've had that happen occasionally in like a hardware store or something where somebody will lean in and whisper, we don't have that here, but you could go over to Home Depot. I think they have that. You ever experienced that where they encourage it, but they don't want anyone to hear it?
Mm-hmm.
The owner of the business will go, man, we got a lot of jobs here we can't get to. Well, clap, clap, clap. Let's go over to our neighbor. Mm-hmm. You want this job? You could have it.
It makes sense, though, because everybody wins. Presumably the people that set up their competitor with the jobs would take some form of a cut because you're, sourcing it out. And then they get money, too. I mean,
I doubt it. I mean, I think what he's saying is they're literally giving the job to somebody else because they have plenty. Because he's not out to make as much money as he possibly can make. That's not his goal.
Mm-hmm. And the customer wins by getting the service done in a better time.
That's correct. His goal is more community-centric than individual-centric. Now, here's the part where, again, I'm not advocating anybody go buy a horse and buggy. I've got a donkey, but no buggy.
Yet.
And he's pretty persnickety. I'm not certain he would want to be hitched up to something.
You just got to train him.
I do want to train him so I can be the Don Quixote of Nelson Township. This is one of my goals in life. People go, oh, it's Brian. Look at this guy riding a donkey. But dare I say that's a biblical approach?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're both quickly agreeing.
Very Acts 2.
What do you mean?
How they come together in community. They shared everything they had. It's not a perfect analogy, but it is, the typical Amish barn raising, for example. The whole community comes out to put up one man's barn, one family's barn. And, it's not just the men with the hammers and saws and ropes and pulleys and everything, But the women are all coming together because they make a big meal so that when the guys break for lunch, the food's all ready. They can feed the army and send them back to work again. Everybody gets involved so that that barn gets put up quickly.
Well, pardon me, and even before the break, if you noticed, one of the guys running this cabinet making business, his dad works for him on the floor as a carpenter.
Yeah, I found that interesting.
What did you find interesting about it?
Because typically in our type of society, if I had a company, I would make my dad, a senior partner or something, even if he didn't want the corner office or something, you'd give him an office and, you relax, Dad. You just oversee quality control, walk around, make sure everybody's doing okay. But his dad, Lyman, I think his name was, probably doesn't want a handout. He goes, I want to work. I want to sweat.
Yeah.
I want to earn my keep.
And he's proud of
what
his
he's
son.
good at, which is evidently carpentry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he's immensely proud of his son. But I can see in other circumstances outside of that particular culture, it's like, no, there's a rite of passage. Dad's going to run the business, and son, you're gonna learn. Whether or not you're better at business doesn't matter. I'm the dad. I'm in charge.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm compelled by this because I don't know. I mean, the Amish have been repelled by the American dream for a long time.
Yeah.
That's not part of the way they think. And I'm watching as the American dream in many respects kind of deteriorates how to live out a Christian life for the rest of us. That we would look at this idea of a guy who just is like, I got more business than I need. I'm going to go give it to my competitor. And we're all like, what? When that's like a fundamental principle, loving your neighbor, consider others more important than yourself.
Yeah.
Just like a ground level, that's what a Christian would do. And I'm not the guy who's going to do that. Like if I were to start a business, you know what my goal is? Accumulate as much wealth as possible, be as successful as possible, get mine for mine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, isn't that the natural inclination of an American?
Mm-hmm.
I think it is. Of an American, yeah.
But as Christians, we're not supposed to have that. I don't know how we shake it. I'm not saying we all start giving business to each other or live collectively, and nor is Brian a socialist. Don't start texting that ridiculousness. I'm not a socialist. But wow, it's convicting.
It is. And the typical free market capitalist who's a Christian, let's say David Safransky for an example, he gets, gathers wealth, earns his money, but he freely gives it away. He's very generous. The whole, building wells for the people in Brazil, all of that. So there is a model of earn money so that you can give it away. And the more you earn, that frees up more money for you to give. But this is another model where maybe you just don't need to earn so much and you just get what you need.
Yeah, because I guess this guy said he sometimes deposits money into a fund that aids local residents with hospital bills and other needs.
Mm-hmm. That's common among the Amish.
Right. But again, not that we emulate that, but it's a very local, my community focused.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy for us to get caught up in, and I'm not saying don't do anything about overseas missions, but sometimes our vision is so overseas that we aren't really investing in our neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that principle is also very biblical. The first believers, they pooled all their resources so that everybody had enough.
Right.
Right. And so I don't know, as America changes dramatically, I'm not saying we should all get horses and buggies or, haircuts that don't look like my haircut. I'm not going to shave my mustache and keep the rest of my beard. But I really think we could learn something here about what it means to live out your faith in Christ, where your goal isn't pull up your bootstraps and be the most successful you can be. What if it's working together as a church community and make sure we're all successful?
Right.
And sometimes sacrificing our own success so others can win too. It's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's 6:46. Time for us to take a quick break. When we come back, oh, wow. Even in her absence, Lauren's being generous.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Old Man Monday for me. Florida, for Daria's history here, is, and if you're watching the live stream, I need bifocals, but I'm too proud to get them. If I wanted to know how to spell a word, I had to actually go get a dictionary. Forget about
your worries and your strife.
I'm all cattywampus.
You're all shook up?
Mm-hmm.
I caught that.
Thanks for setting him up, Lauren.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
It's 6:52 on Mornings with Brian. That's Rebecca St. James, Song of Love. And hey, how would you like to see her in person? Well, you can. She is putting on her Christmas concert sponsored by Compassion International and Christian Healthcare Ministries. That's right. She's coming to the Cleveland area December 5th. She's going to be at Grace Church in Middleburg Heights. And we have a special message by our friend, Pastor Scott Lessing. He's going to be there. I don't believe he's going to be wearing an elf costume. He's just going to be giving a message prior to the concert. If you want to get some information, get your tickets, you can text the word concert to 440-546-2255.
Will you be warming up the crowd at all with any Christmas favorites, Daria?
I will not be there. I've told you this like 4 times.
Well, you could do it right now then. Go ahead.
I'm good.
Turn it up, Ron.
You're doing such a great job. You don't need me.
Daria.
Nah, I'm good.
And heaven and nature sing. And heaven. Come on, Daria.
You're carrying it.
Heaven and heaven, nature sing. Whoops, that was too fast. Oh, that was a big ending. I loved it. Can never get this lady to do anything. Although, I believe it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
She did something.
Yeah, because no one asked me to. That's the big difference.
Ah. It was very festive, though. You still have it in there, Ron? Oh, Daria. That's so lovely. Well, we'd love to see you at the concert. Someone texted to ask, hey, do you think my 8 and 10-year-olds would enjoy the Rebecca St. James Christmas concert? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's going to be Christmas songs and Rebecca St. James stuff, and kids love concerts. It's in church. Ron will be there.
Who doesn't love Christmas music?
Uncle Ron. Are you passing out presents?
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, I know. I'm not passing out presents.
I did
I'm a
buy
cheapskate.
Santa hats that you guys can wear.
Daria.
Yeah, I've got some of that at home.
I've got a turkey costume for you for Thanksgiving.
You can wear the Santa hats I got.
I don't know. We'll see. Nonetheless, yeah, we are excited about the show. Would love to see you there. Ah, a flautist.
Mm-hmm.
Take it, Daria.
You know she's not.
Whoa, we started over. Okay, so you could text the word concert to 440-546-2255. Working our way through the winded instruments.
Yeah.
Thank you. Text concert to 440-546-2255. Again, it's Grace Church, Middleburg Heights, December 5th. Would love to see you there.
Mm-hmm.
But we should give away a pair of tickets. So, Daria, what caller number should we give it to?
2.
Nice.
Caller number 2 right now gets a pair of tickets to see Rebecca St. James at Grace Church in Middleburg Heights, sponsored by Compassion International and Christian Healthcare Ministries. Call now, 440-546-2255, 440-546-2255.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
It's Micah Tyler on WCRF. We do want to say a big congratulations to our winner, Rosita from Wadsworth. She gets a pair of tickets to see Rebecca St. James on December 5th. Congratulations.
Way to go. All right, Daria. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open. Okay.
There's still fall leaves on the trees. I'm enjoying them.
All right, come Christmas time, you never know. All right, again, if you want to get tickets, text concert to 440-546-2255. The big day, December 5th, Grace Church in Middleburg Heights. So Instagram/Meta claims that they are fixing a big problem, or at least working on fixing a big problem.
Okay.
Are they? We'll talk about that together. But first, Ron's News and today's More Ron Moment.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Around 8 million people are getting at least another 6-month break on repaying their federal student loans. It's 7 o'clock. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Those eligible are enrolled in the Biden administration's SAVE plan. The Department of Education said yesterday that the enrollees will be put on an interest-free forbearance. A Westlake woman who police say left her 3 young children at home when she went to Florida has been convicted of child endangerment. Prosecutors say that 32-year-old Dominique Wills left her 10-year-old child and their 2 younger twin sisters with special needs at home unattended while she went to Miami to be with a friend who was having liposuction. The situation was uncovered when a school teacher requested a welfare check be conducted at the family's home. And the city of Akron has reached a financial settlement with the family of Jayland Walker. Walker's family filed a federal suit after the 25-year-old's 2022 shooting death at the hands of Akron police. Newly released details about the settlement revealed that the city of Akron will pay the Walker family $4.85 million in 4 installments made over the next 4 years. I'll be right back with sports and weather.
Pursue your passion for shepherding, teaching, and ministry leadership with a Master of Divinity from Moody Theological Seminary. New for fall of 2025. Earn the same world-class degree in a shorter amount of time. We've reduced credit hours to earn a degree while maintaining the quality and course content essential for effective ministry. Need flexibility? Take classes online or on our Chicago or Michigan campuses. Even interchange between all options on a class-by-class basis. Get started at moody.edu/MDiv.
In sports, the Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson will be out for the rest of the season after he ruptured his Achilles tendon during Sunday's game. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Mostly sunny this morning, then becoming partly cloudy. High temperatures will be in the upper 70s. And at last check, clear skies, 50 degrees in Cleveland, 50 in Akron and Canton, 52 in Ashtabula.
It's time for your Moron Moment.
If you could turn back time, what would you do? In a sense, you can. You can look up your first ever post on Facebook. Open your profile on the web, click the filters button above your own posts, and then fill in the go-to information. It may take you some guesswork, but you can browse back to the month and year that you signed up. Mine was October of 2009. You may want to delete some of those posts if they're a little too cringy looking back at them now, okay? And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 7:03 with Moody Radio News. I'm
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
7:06, that Stars Go Dim on WCRF, Mornings with Brian. Coming up at 8:30, from 8:30 to 9, we've got our friend David Mullane from Yost Insurance coming in to answer your Medicare questions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know you have them because he may be the only person on earth who understands Medicare. Remember, I tried to be like, oh, there's no more part whatever. And he's like, actually, there is that, but there's no more part.
The next letter. What? You know, you said G and it was H or something like that.
But don't quote us on that because we don't know.
Right.
But nonetheless, we're out of questions for him right now.
Yeah, so if you want to get your questions in now, there's a good chance we'd get to it. You can text those to 440-546-2255. He's joining us about 8:30.
That'll be great. And Daria, as I understand it, will be singing some Christmas music later on this morning.
No.
So, no?
No.
You must not have understood that.
I guess I didn't understand that correctly. But all right, so I wanted to chat a little bit about, you know how much heat's been on Meta. Now, for those who don't know, it's the really, I don't like the name that Facebook created for their larger entity.
Right.
Because they own, what are they? They own Instagram.
Facebook and...
WhatsApp?
There's several other big apps that they own. I don't even know at this point. They own a lot.
And this Meta I felt like such a pretentious thing to name yourself. Whatever.
Yeah. Like Google created Alphabet to be their shell company above them.
And that felt less pretentious. It's just like a random, like Alphabet. Okay, great. Supposed to. We're very meta here. We think about thinking for you, and you do. So they've been getting a ton of heat from Congress and parents alike because, I don't know, social media is such a scourge on society and children in particular. But that they came out essentially like saying, hey, guys, we've done it. We've set up all these protections now against something called sextortion. Now, if you're not familiar, sextortion is something that happens to teens on a regular basis where they are targeted by people pretending to be peers from somewhere else in the country. They trick them into sending compromising photographs of themselves, and then they demand payment. And if the kids don't send payment, they threaten to publish the photos, compromising photos. It's terrible.
Yeah. And that second step just gets me every time. Like, I never, as a teenager, even today, had the thought of, oh, let me take pictures of my private area and send that digitally to someone, knowing that they could send it, make a copy and send it to the Wall Street Journal. I don't know.
It's just a different form of peer pressure. Kids nowadays, they don't smoke cigarettes. This is what they think everyone's doing and what the cool thing is to do. And this is how they make friends and get boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever.
Wow. And there's an illusion of privacy. Now, it's not a good illusion, but no one has accused, teens of making great decisions in life. But there's this it's my phone. I'm in the privacy of my home. And this person over there that I know and quote unquote trust, they won't do anything. And I know it sounds crazy to an adult, but I think as a kid, you believe it's private.
Yeah, no, teens are not, first of all, their brains are not fully developed. They're not great judges of character. It's not their fault, basically.
Now, when it comes to sextortion, between October 2021 and March 2023, federal officials identified at least 12,600 victims.
Wow.
Now, that's the ones they identified.
Right.
Who knows how many were not identified? And among those, 20 of those cases were suicides, which one of them happened locally here.
Right. We talked about that.
Horribly tragic.
And how many other suicides could have been tied to sextortion and it never came out?
Right.
You just didn't know why, but this otherwise happy person killed themselves.
And this is why it's so important for Christian parents. Julie Slattery has talked about how we have to be having conversations with our kids about sex at a young age. But there needs to be a moment where you look your kid in the eye, and maybe regularly, and say, nothing that you do will cause me to stop loving you.
Right.
You can come to me with anything. Here's what sextortion is. If this happened to you, you come to me and I got your back. And nothing changes. And I know it's not, well, they know that. No, they don't.
No, in the heat of the moment, they are just so overwhelmed. All of that goes out.
And it's yet another reason why authoritarian parenting is no longer something that can be done. Is that the right word? Am I using the right one?
I think so.
There's like authoritarian and there's like authoritative, and there's a distinct difference. But
The bad one.
Yeah, one of them's not recommended anymore.
This whole my way or the highway, obey me or else, do the right thing or there's consequences. You doing that, your kid's going to be an easy target for sextortion because they'll be too afraid to tell you they did something that you told them not to do.
Right.
And so I don't care who you are, whether you're homeschooled or, my kids don't have a phone, don't they? How do you know? It's not that hard to get a burner.
Right.
To get it from a friend. Oh, my kids aren't on Instagram, aren't they? You sure about that? It's not hard. They just kind of go, how old are you? Yeah, great. Come on in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just silly.
And maybe they're going to the library and using a computer there.
That's right. So you've got to talk to them about it. Now, Meta said in a statement on Thursday that they rolled out this new, they have teen accounts now.
Okay.
And they have protections for kids. So they're hiding teen follower lists from potential blackmailers, which makes it hard for criminals to connect with young people. And they're releasing a video in the U.S., Britain, Canada, and Australia to the feeds of teens on how to spot sextortion scams.
Okay, that's helpful if the kids watch it.
They also have nudity protection features that blurs potential images and also like nudges teens before they send it. Like, are you sure you want to do this? Like it consents it. And they're like, you sure?
Okay.
Sure you want to do that? And users can no longer screenshot images in an app's chat.
That's good.
This is one way they've been able to do this. So are you happy now?
No.
Daria?
Happier, but...
Are you happier?
No, I don't trust, you cannot trust these big companies to put guardrails up for your kids. They have done experiments with Instagram where they have created essentially a new person that doesn't exist. It's an adult pretending to be a 13-year-old or whatever. They mark on Instagram, I'm 13, I'm a minor, brand new email accounts and everything. And then they go to Reels, and then like the second or third image they see is sexually explicit content for an account that Instagram knows is a minor.
But Daria, they have all these protections now.
And I don't think you can trust them to keep your kids safe.
Yeah, and they made this video. Good for them. Is teenager going to watch that?
Right.
No.
I mean, what? Maybe half, if they're lucky. Other ones going, no thanks. And I don't know, teen account. What is it? The honor system still?
Yeah, I mean, you can. Again, you can set up a teen account for your kid. That's not to say that they're not going to get frustrated with the guardrails that are there and then go in private, make an adult account.
Yeah, when there's still no verification system for age, all it takes is just a kid saying, oh, yeah, I'm 18.
Yeah, I mean, short of a government ID being required for a social media platform, which that's a whole other can of worms I don't know that we want to go into, there is no form of age verification and making sure that kids are safe online.
It's wild. I mean, the government's figured out a way for us to file taxes online without, and verify our identity. I mean, when I'm filling out, when my daughter, when I was filling out FAFSA forms for my daughter for college, do you know how fast they can access my information? It's not hard for me to do a couple of pieces of information. Suddenly, they've got my tax return. I don't even have to put it in there. They're just going to throw it into the whole system. But can we figure out if someone's really 18? No, we can't do that. That'll hurt Meta. Yeah, I guess a bunch of people were upset, essentially saying you still haven't solved the real problem, which is it's addictive.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever legislators and parents are like, your algorithm is addictive for children. It's like cigarettes. You got to change this. Just crickets is what you hear.
Yeah.
They don't want to fix that.
Of course not. They make money off of it, just like the cigarette companies. It took legislation to get people, specifically kids, off cigarettes.
So, by the way, they also took down 63,000 accounts associated with sextortion rings, including thousands of accounts from this same Nigeria-based collective.
That's good. Keep doing that.
And those collectives, what do you think they said? Oh, they caught us. We're going to shut down now.
Nope.
They just opened up new ones. Right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So how is society going to fix this?
If I knew that, I could be a very rich man selling that secret.
I've said it before. I think it's too late for Gen Z. But
yes, I do. I agree.
The parents of Gen Alpha just need to collectively decide we will not put our kids on social media.
And there's a level at which, I think we've said this before, but, I know as Americans, we really value blocking government intervention and let's do things by ourselves, individuals, let the free market run itself. But there are limits to that. I mean, we are a limited free market economy with checks. I mean, we prevent monopolies from taking place, and there's business regulations and such. I don't know. Maybe this is a time where people have to go, yeah, I don't necessarily love government intervention, but what else is going to fix this problem?
Yeah.
Like, find a way. It's not hard. We sent people to the moon in the 1960s. You think we can figure out a way to verify identity in 2024?
You would hope so. I don't know myself how to do it, but
somebody's got this figured out. There's got to be a way for government regulation to force them to change their algorithms.
Yeah. The government gets involved with telephone systems and radio, all these other media. I think the social media should be lumped in there too.
They were able to convince tobacco companies or force them to put giant labels on that says this is going to kill you.
Yeah, basically.
I don't know. It's terrible. 7:18, time for a quick break when we come back. Speaking of, we were mentioning, adults, like you're 18 is what they're looking for to be an adult, right? But what really is adulthood? Somebody asked Gen Z, and they have an answer.
They say you can't take it with you, and that's mostly true, but there are some things from this life that do carry into eternity. Every act of kindness and generosity, every big and little thing that you do for Jesus, how God uses you to share the good news of Jesus Christ with those who have never heard. There are 3.2 billion people around the world with little or no access to the gospel. Many may live their entire lives never hearing about Jesus, not even once. But you could help change that today with a gift to support gospel broadcasts. This is Wayne Shepherd with the Far East Broadcasting Company, and I'm excited to share that we are focused relentlessly on reaching the unreached through radio, digital platforms, and social media. FEBC broadcasts the gospel in over 150 languages. This is the Great Commission in action, reaching those who have never heard, and you can be a part of it. Learn more at febc.org. That's febc.org.
A lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you could get both, why not? Especially when it comes to healthcare, and that is MediShare. You get both. Many families save $500 a month with MediShare, and that's huge. But it's also true that people wind up way more satisfied, too. The member satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. That's because MediShare works. It has for more than 30 years. It's a community of Christians who have shared more than $5 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth. They love the huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price in 2 minutes. Here's the number. Just call 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE. 877-58-BIBLE.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland. 6 to 9 a.m. Weekdays on 3.
I think you got to realize God loves you, has a plan for your life. He's put you in this position. And if he's put you here, don't take yourself out just by your own self-doubt. If he doesn't want you operating this board, in my case, then he would make it evident, and Josh would say, look, we've had enough of your mistakes. You're out, buddy. We'll get somebody younger and more capable.
Oh, you stop this.
Pitch you out to the old folks' home.
We don't receive that, right?
We don't receive that. That's the imposter syndrome talking. Pastor, how do you battle imposter syndrome?
Prayer, lots of prayer. I'm ultimately where I'm at because this is what God wants me to be. Try to stay focused on the fact that regardless of what I may feel from a workspace standpoint, I know the work that I put in. Like, so it's like it creeps in, but it's also not. You know how you have like, I feel like you can have imposter syndrome because you really shouldn't be in the room and people think you should be in the room, and then you can have imposter syndrome and it's like, no, but I actually should be in the room, but the enemy's just in my brain. And just trying to remind myself like, okay, God got me, and wait, I know I put this.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
That's Francesca Battistelli at 724 on WCRF. And looky here, December 5th is the big day. It's Christmas with Rebecca St. James, sponsored by Compassion International and Christian Healthcare Ministries. Text concert to get the tickets and more information. Text concert to 440-546-2255. Concert to 440-546-2255. We're going to record an interview with her later today, Ron.
Yes, we are.
And Brian is going to be well behaved.
Is he?
He better be, or I will tell Lauren.
Uh-oh.
Now, wait, what? You're going to tell Lauren?
I'm going to tell Lauren. In fact, I hope she's listening right now.
I can't say crikey. Crikey, it's great to have you on the show, Rebecca.
I mean, do you want to be known for the fact you're from Minnesota? Do you want people to just throw a whole bunch of Minnesota stereotypes at you?
Yes.
When you're supposed to be talking about something else?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. You betcha.
are alone.
Yeah, you betcha. Let's have a hot dish. But anyway, she's a musician, so obviously it's too early for her. So, they sleep in late. I was a musician for a while. Like noon was pretty early. So.
I bet.
Can't wait to talk to her and have her come to town. Again, December 5th, text concert to 440-546-2255. All right, so a survey was done of Gen Z adults, Gen Z, to find out about adulthood, when it starts and what constitutes it. So let's just quiz you guys first. When does adulthood start?
I mean, I'm almost 27 and I still don't feel like an adult.
You don't?
I certainly didn't feel like one at 18. I thought I was, hot stuff then, but I was not an adult.
Well,
it's hard because there are stages, like 18 is a mile marker and 21 is a mile marker and 25 is a mile marker. But which one of them actually is, okay, now you're an adult? I don't know.
If you were compelled to give an age where adulthood begins, what would you say?
I would say 21.
Yeah,
Darius
21.
Is 21. And Ron says 21. Okay, and why is that adulthood? What makes 21 the mile marker for, and you're an adult?
Because you're officially not a teen, and I don't know. I know some people that got married like really young, where so young you raise your eyebrows. I feel like 21 is the start of like, okay, this is fine.
It's just some sort of marker where it's like, well, you're not that young.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Ron?
It just seems like society has been gearing that way for a while, that at 21 you get certain legalities that, yeah, you're an adult. You can do this, you can do that.
Well, Gen Z was quizzed, and they were asked, when does adulthood start? It's your generation, Daria.
I'm aware.
Gen Z said the age is 27.
Really? I'm almost there, guys.
27. You're almost an adult, Daria. Look how close you are. Whee! When's your birthday again?
December 5th.
Daria! Oh, my goodness. Your birthday's coming up. We're going to have a big party.
I'm not going to be here.
You're going to be an adult.
I will.
27.
But I'm not going to be here.
Do you know what Gen Z says constitutes becoming an adult?
Having your own house or apartment or...
Nope. 56% of Gen Zers say it's when you can pay your own bills. So they say you're an adult when you can pay your own bills, and that is 27.
I'm a little concerned for a few different reasons that they think they can't pay their own bills till 27.
Mm-hmm. Why is that?
On one hand, the economy is that bad where some people might be struggling for that long. On the other hand, I think you need to get out and get a job.
Yeah. It's like, can you work?
I've been paying my own bills since I was 22. You guys can do it. In fact, technically before then.
Well, in the olden days, I hate to be harsh, but in the olden days, if one job didn't cut it, you'd get a second one.
Right. And cut back on your expenses. You're eating ramen noodles and mac and cheese, stuff like that, so that you can pay your own bills.
Chris texted to say he's 62 and his wife still says he's childish.
Well, I think that's another matter, Chris.
I mean, Ron and I are both 13 at heart.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy will occasionally do something. He's 30, and I will just say, how old are you? And he'll go 3. So, yes, correct.
Yeah, this is why Jimmy thinks great jokes are so funny.
Because he's 3?
No, I would say he's being just silly. He's being exaggerated. He's 13 at heart. Most boys stop their humor maturing at 13, right?
Yeah,
maybe 8, depending on the
certain
guy.
realm of humor, at least.
So there it is, Gen Z having a hard time making it. Adulthood's at 27. It's very old, Daria.
It is very old.
Tell Jimmy you're almost there, okay?
Almost old?
Almost an adult. Almost an adult.
My mom was, we were having dinner recently, and she says, are you going to be 27 soon? I said, yeah, don't remind me.
Wow, wait till you're 30, you old lady.
Jimmy's already planning my 30th, and I'm mad at him for it.
Oh, my, Jimmy.
Jimmy, calm down.
He's getting back at me because he didn't want to make a big deal for his 30th last year, and I made a big deal because obviously, so he's getting his revenge.
You see what you did?
I know.
When can we start calling you an old lady? I suppose it's when you're an adult.
Yeah, so he
got a couple of weeks left. And
2.5 months, roughly.
Let's check it with the old lady on that one.
Yeah.
Lauren and I were talking about something about like Gen Z lingo, whatever, and I turned to her. I said, we are a bunch of old ladies. She said, yes.
Yeah, and in fact, I watch as my teenage kids marvel at the middle school jargon, which has surpassed them. They're like, what?
Yeah, I don't get it. I do feel old when I'm around people that are only a few years younger than I am.
Yeah, all the kids are talking about skibbity all the time in middle school.
Skibbity?
Quit making up words.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. If I just offended somebody, I don't know. I mean, who knows what they're saying? But my son tells me they're all saying it, and I heard it yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, working it all out. Adults. 7:30, time for a quick break. But coming up here in a few minutes, our good friend Todd Nettleton. He's from Voice of the Martyrs. He has an update on the persecuted church.
I'm Nate Hunter, and this is Pause for Prayer. Miscommunication gets us in trouble and is sometimes funny, while taking time to listen avoids many conflicts. I read on the internet of an encounter where a little girl told her brother that when Mommy had their baby sister, She was foaming at the mouth. As the parents were talking about it, the dad remembered that earlier the little girl had asked him if it hurts to have babies. He misheard her and thought she asked if it hurts to have rabies. His response is what got communicated to his brother. Let's pause for prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we make blunders in our communication sometimes. They often can't just be laughed off like children's mistakes. Periodically, even Proverbs 18:13 plays out in our lives. If one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. Too often in my life, Lord, I know I have caused my own problems and even sometimes issues for others. Please help me and many of us praying to listen closely and intentionally to others. Help us to think through good advice and then put it into action. Help us to speak clearly and with the other person in mind. Too often, Lord, I want to be heard and I want to make my point about the subject at hand. Allow me to put my children and friends' concerns before mine. Please help us to communicate in a kind and thoughtful manner. Make me and us to be people of integrity, honest with others, and honest to ourselves. We know Jesus spoke to hundreds in public settings. He also taught his own disciples through actions and words. Whether we speak eloquently or reduce our thoughts to few words, help us to be clear and to honor you with our words. Hold our tongues when it comes to criticism and allow us to give compliments liberally. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight, my strength and my Redeemer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Making assumptions is rarely a good idea. That's true when it comes to thinking healthcare costs can't be affordable. Christian Healthcare Ministries has been helping believers meet their healthcare needs for over 40 years. It's not insurance, it's a ministry. Visiting chministries.org/Moody eliminates assumptions and shows how this unique model has worked to meet the healthcare needs of hundreds of thousands of Christians. Get more information and have your questions answered at chministries.org/Moody.
Helping you take the next step in your
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
left. Mornings with Brian. We're at 7:37. That was Maverick City Music. And boy, I'm glad to see our friend coming back. He went on a big trip recently. He is Chief of Media Relations and Message Integration for Voice of the Martyrs and hosts the Voice of the Martyrs radio. Todd Nettleton, welcome back.
Thanks so much. It's good to be with you.
Now, I want to hear all about your trip to the Middle East, but first, remind us now as we get really close about the International Day of Prayer for the Persecuted Church.
Yes, 2 Sundays from now is the first Sunday in November. Traditionally, that is the International Day of Prayer for Persecuted Christians. We, as you may have heard, we have an election coming up in our country this year. Some churches are going to say, hey, we're going to do it the second Sunday or the third Sunday. That's okay. We just want to make sure every church is praying for persecuted Christians during the month of November. We have lots of resources at persecution.com, the VOM website, right at the top of the page. We did a new video this year from Colombia, filmed in Colombia, telling the true story of a Colombian pastor and his family, the persecution that they face. This film is about 4 minutes long. It's great to show in a service or a Sunday school class or a Bible study group. And the idea of the film is simply to put a face on the people we're praying for. So we understand some of their challenges. We understand better how to pray for them. There's other resources as well, church bulletin inserts, prayer slides, even a sermon builder if you're a pastor. Again, we just want to make sure every church is praying for our persecuted family around the world. That's their number one request. When we go and see them and say, hey, how can we help you? The first thing they say is pray for us. We want to equip every church to do that in the month of November.
Persecution.com is the place to go?
Yep, that's the place right at the top of the page.
Persecution.com. Make sure your church does something for this so we can pray for our brothers and sisters experiencing anything from discomfort to life-threatening issues because of their faith in Jesus. Now, Todd, you went to the Middle East, and I traveled to India a while back, and it was complicated to fill out a visa, honestly, but also carefully so that I can get in. I can't imagine how complicated it is just to get to the Middle East for you.
It's a long journey, yes. The flight home the other day was 16 and a half hours, and by the time we landed, I was very anxious.
Oh, boy, 60. Ugh. Okay, so we don't want to know specifics about where you went because we want to protect believers who are in that area. But tell us about the purpose of your trip. Why did you go?
Well, the goal for us was to go and get a better understanding of what our brothers and sisters in the Middle East are facing. And also, the great part of the trip is to hear the stories of what God is doing in that part of the world. And God is at work. I've thought about this, especially as we have an election coming up and we think about, oh, no, if this happens or that happens, then the church will be stopped. And then I look at what's happening in the Middle East where the governments are completely opposed to the church. God is not phased at all. He is still on the move. He is still working. We talked with one Christian woman, and she said in the last 6 months, she's heard 3 specific stories of people having dreams where a man in white came to them in their dream. And interesting, and this was kind of a new wrinkle for me because I've heard of dream stories where the man in white says, hey, I'm Jesus, I'm here to save you. I've heard of dreams where the man in white says, hey, find my book and read my book, the Bible. But in these 3 dreams, and again, 3 different people, different friend groups, but all 3, the dream said, hey, it pointed out to a Christian friend that this Muslim dreamer had and said, you should listen to that person. You should listen to what they're telling you. And I'd never heard that kind of a dream story before, but 3 separate stories, 3 different dreams. We know God is at work in the Middle East, even supernaturally pointing people to say, hey, listen to that Christian friend. Listen to what they're telling you. They know the truth.
Wow. And so really there's no connection between these 3 different incidents in terms of like people knowing each other. It's like totally separate. That's wild.
It is so common in that part of the world for dreams and visions that one of the people we talked to said they will often ask when they meet someone or if they're having conversation, they get to know somebody a little bit. Hey, have you had any dreams? Have you seen the man in white in your dreams? And they said, it is not uncommon for the person to say, absolutely, yes, I have. It's interesting that you asked that. But almost always they will either say, I have, or they will say, I haven't, but I know someone who has. So that's how common it is that literally as you make new friends, you can ask, hey, do you know anyone who's had dreams of a man in white? And the answer is very often, yes, I had one, or yes, I know someone who had one.
That's incredible. I mean, what else but God could that be? That's incredible. Okay, so next item I want to get to from your trip to the Middle East was there's actually some good news about governments paying attention to Christians, yeah?
Yeah, there are some governments in the Middle East that are changing the way they interact with Christians. And in some cases, it's an effort to modernize. They want to be more friendly towards the outside world, and they want to put on more of a friendly face. In some cases, they are more concerned about radical Islam in their country, and they're paying more attention to that. But we heard some amazing stories of how Christians are active in places where they haven't been before. One of the stories we heard was about a guy who is a Christian publisher. So he's in the Christian, he's putting out Christian literature, Christian materials, distributing Bibles. He applied to go to a book fair, international book fair in the country of Saudi Arabia, which, like Saudi Arabia, no, they're not ever going to let you put Christian books at a book fair. What? He got accepted to the book fair.
What?
They even allowed him to have Bibles in his booth at the book fair. Now, at first,
What?
he laid the Bibles out and kind of had them as part of his display. They came along and said, whoa, wait a minute. We don't want those Bibles out on the table where people could see them. Why don't you put those under the table? And then if someone asks specifically about a Bible, you can pull one out and show it to them. But no. Don't just put it out there on full display. But even that, for him to get that kind of permission to go to Saudi Arabia is just amazing and mind-blowing. So that's not an uncommon story in that part of the world. The governments are, like I say, they're more worried about radical Islam in some cases. They're worried about economics, and they're worried about trying to trade with the West. So they want to put on kind of a friendly face. But there are multiple countries around the region where it's getting a little easier to be a follower of Christ. Now, typically, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's no persecution. It means persecution starts with your family rather than with the police or with the government.
So is it safe to assume that they're not changing laws? They're just not really enforcing them as much?
Typically, that's correct. Yeah, they are not necessarily changing the law. They are changing how the law is enforced, or even like how careful they are to look for people breaking the law. Like in some places, they are saying, hey, listen, what you do in your own home, you just do that, and we're not going to worry about it. Whereas before, they might have been knocking on doors like, hey, wait a minute, there's 20 people here. What's going on? We actually talked to a Christian who said in the old days, when their fellowship gathered together, they always had a birthday cake in the fridge. and if there was a knock on the door, they pull out the birthday cake, they start singing happy birthday, and people ask questions. They're like, hey, we're just having a birthday party. Hey, would you like a piece of cake? We would love to give you a piece of cake.
Wow.
They said every week they ordered a cake to have ready for their worship gathering, just in case there was a knock on the door that week. They don't necessarily have to do that anymore because, like I say, the governments are more and more saying, hey, listen, what you do in your own house, that's your business.
And now back to Saudi Arabia. 10 years ago, correct me if I'm wrong, you couldn't even bring a Bible into Saudi Arabia. Is that right?
Saudi Arabia has changed pretty dramatically. We heard several stories of how it's a little calmer there for Christians and how they are able to meet together more openly. And so it's one of the things to really praise the Lord for, how things are changing in that particular part of the Middle East.
Now, you also got to go to a worship service when you were in this undisclosed location. Tell us about that experience.
It was quite amazing. And one of the things that amazed me is how many people were there. I would say there were between 80 and 100 people gathered together. And to the point that I was looking around like, is this okay? Should we really have all these people together? Should we all be singing at the top of our lungs? Like we're going to get caught. But they were boldly worshiping the Lord. And what a joy to know that in this closed country, where it's illegal for you to gather and have a worship service, here we were having a worship service, and the Lord was watching over us, and certainly the Lord was present. And to think that they do that every week, what a joy.
What a great experience for you, too. It's hard to describe, but even when you don't speak a language that's being conducted for worship, it doesn't even matter in my experience, right? I mean, you feel it.
You feel it. That's exactly right. And it's one of the things that amazes me as I have traveled is, I look different from many of these people. I speak a different language, but there is that connection. We are part of the same family. Even if we look very different and speak very different, we're part of the same family. And it is quickly apparent when you get in that situation. Hey, these are my brothers. These are my sisters. I'm among family.
Finally, let's shift back to I guess Somalia is where we're going to look now, right? Or is it a Somali couple in the U.S.?
It is a Somali couple outside of Somalia. So
Gotcha.
Many Somalis have fled Somalia. I got the chance to interview this couple. We'll have them on Voice of the Martyrs radio in the month of November. Amazing couple. She came to faith first, and it's a dream story. After having a dream, she came to faith in Christ. They were living in Europe at the time. She began to tell her husband, he was like, whoa, this is not good. You've got to come back to Islam. But he also loved his wife. He didn't want to just leave her and cut her off, even though she was now an infidel. And 4 years later, he came to faith as well. He's following Christ now too. Her mom actually said, listen, you're dead to me. In fact, if I see you, I will kill you with my own hands. That's how their families responded. Even living in Europe, living in a free place, they were still threatened. Their lives were threatened there. They began to witness online. They put videos online. And at first, they covered their faces and they used a fake name. And they were just saying, hey, we're Somali and we're following Jesus Christ. We want to tell you about this. They started to read in the comments and people were saying, these are not real Somalis, because a Somali would never become a Christian. Somalis are Muslims. These are foreigners who somehow learned our language, and they're trying to trick us into following Christ. So when they started to read those comments and they prayed about it, they decided, you know what? we're just gonna put ourselves out there.
Wow.
They began to put their faces online, their real names they used in these videos, and they put their phone number. They said, hey, text us or call us. We'll tell you more about Jesus. Immediately, the text line started firing up with, hey, we're going to kill you. Hey, we know where you're at. I'm going to personally put 40 bullets in your head. That was one of the text messages they got just 2 days before I talked to them. They also had, though, an amazing comment from a Somali in the Minneapolis area here in the United States who said, I used to watch your videos every day to curse you. And I thought, it's interesting how God works. She's watching because she's so angry about what's in the videos, but she's being impacted by the gospel. She said, now I watch every day and I pray for God's protection over you. I pray for blessings on your ministry. This Somali couple has amazing courage. They are still getting threats, but they are still ministering for the gospel in a very public way for a Somali Christian to do.
Incredible. Yeah. Our friend Todd Nettleton has been our guest today from Voice of the Martyrs, and he's also host of Voice of the Martyrs Radio. If folks want to listen to your program or get information on the International Day of Prayer for the Persecuted Church, where do they go?
Persecution.com is the main VOM website. There's links to VOM Radio there. You can also just search for VOM Radio wherever you listen to podcasts, but start out persecution.com.
Todd, as always, thanks for the updates. May God be with you. We'll talk again soon, okay?
Thanks so much. Have a good day.
7:50 coming up in a few minutes. We may have a special something for someone.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
more attention. But I sit here and listen to David, and it goes in one ear and out the other. And pretty soon I'm going to be like asking my own questions.
That's right. So you want to get your questions answered? Text right now. Text your question in for David Mullane of Yost Insurance. You can text in your question to 440-546-2255. 440-546-2255. Daria, are you wearing red today or green or anything?
I'm not.
I thought she was.
No. Need to get your
just-
eyes checked.
Maybe it's just, well, I do need that.
You need bifocals.
I need them pretty badly. I just don't even try to read stuff anymore through my glasses. I just lift them up. It's pretty bad. I even increased the font today when I printed stuff for the show. I have this app in Chrome where you can it's easier to print things. 'Cause I still like paper because I'm basically 100 years old. And you can increase the font. Pump that up.
Nice.
Good job.
You're seeming Christmassy, Daria. Extra. Oh, Daria.
That was from last year.
Nobody needs to know that. You're so festive. Merry Christmas, Daria.
Merry Christmas. It's October.
Well, we've got a big show for you. We're putting together a concert, Christmas with Rebecca St. James, sponsored by Compassion International and Christian Healthcare Ministries. Daria,
Yes.
take it away.
I think I'm just going to take it in.
Ooh, a little dissonance there. The show's December 5th at Grace Church of Middleburg Heights. Rebecca St. James going to perform all your Christmas favorites, I'd imagine, plus maybe some Christmas stuff of her own. And
yeah, hard to tell.
Maybe
I guess we could ask her and find out.
Yeah, we're going to interview her later today, and we're going to ask her about things like Vegemite and walkabouts and things.
Or just talk about Christmas stuff.
Or just Christmas stuff. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe.
If you would like to join us for the show, text the word concert to 440-546-2255. Text concert to 440-546-2255. Or should we give away a pair of tickets?
I think we should.
To what caller number, Christmas, Daria?
Caller number 5.
Oh, what a great Christmas choice. Caller number 5, 440-546-2255.
The 5 golden rings.
440-546-2255. You call now. You could be. It is Old Man Monday for me. Florida, for Daria's history here, is, and if you're watching the live stream, I need bifocals, but I'm too proud to get them. If I wanted to know how to spell a word, I had to actually go get a dictionary.
Forget about your worries and your strife.
I'm all cattywampus.
You're all shook up?
Mm-hmm.
I caught that.
Thanks for setting him up, Lauren.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
It's Juan Winans. It is 7:58 here on WCRF Mornings with Brian. And we do want to say congratulations to Lana in Vermilion.
Yeah.
She's the winner of a pair of tickets to see Rebecca St. James on December 5th. She's going to be at Grace Church in Middleburg Heights. Don't worry if you weren't a winner, because you can text the word concert to 440-546-2255 to get some more information and get your tickets there.
And yeah, Ron, go.
I was just going to say, we see Lana and her husband at just about every event. They've been traveling to Canton quite a bit.
Oh, wow.
So Middleburg Heights will be a breeze for them.
Well, can't wait to see you guys there. All righty. So it is the open enrollment period right now for Medicare.
Okay.
It's open enrollment. Ron, are you enrolling?
Not yet.
It's 67?
I should know.
This is why we have Yost insurance on.
I don't even know how old you have to be. Some of you, I know you've got questions. Text them in now, 440-546-2255. We're half an hour away from David Mullane of Yost Insurance, ready to answer your Medicare questions. 440-546-2255. But coming up in a couple of minutes, we need an update on what's happening in Israel.
Yeah.
There was a significant assassination of a Hamas official and a seemingly retaliatory attempt to assassinate the Prime Minister of Israel.
Mm-hmm. Unsuccessful.
Unsuccessful, yes.
Yeah.
So what is going on there? And then if we have time, we'll get to this odd, like, Canada versus India thing that no one ever thought would be a thing.
Sounds like an Olympic competition or something, but it's not.
Yeah, one that plays at midnight.
Yeah.
So we'll find out more from our good friend, Dr. Glenn Deurr of Cedarville University, where he serves as Professor of International Studies. We'll get to that after Ron's news and today's More Ron Moment.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Well, the election is just 15 days away, and both candidates are hitting the ground running this week. It's 8:01. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Former President Trump is visiting North Carolina today, where he's holding an afternoon rally in Greenville after an earlier stop assessing hurricane damage in Asheville. Meanwhile, Vice President Harris is making stops in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. A Lyft driver is facing charges after allegedly kidnapping a child in Akron. The incident happened Friday when 52-year-old Lyft driver Stevan Moore and a female passenger got into an argument. When that woman got out of the vehicle, Moore sped off with the woman's 1-year-old child still in the vehicle. Moore drove to a fire station and turned the young girl over to firefighters unharmed. And more than 600,000 voters have cast ballots since early voting began in Ohio. The Ohio Secretary of State's office says about 234,000 absentee ballots have been returned, and another 433,000 residents have participated in early in-person voting. I'll be right back with sports and weather.
Intensifying, increasing, up 388% in the United States. That's how law enforcement and Jewish organizations describe the rise in anti-Semitism since the October 7th attack on Israel. What is anti-Semitism and what fuels it? On Saturday, November 9th, Moody Bible Institute and Chosen People Ministries host the Summit on Opposing Anti-Semitism on Moody's Chicago campus. Discover practical ways to support the Jewish people and stand against hate. For more details, visit moodyconferences.com.
In sports, Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson is going to be out for the rest of the season after he ruptured his Achilles tendon during Sunday's game. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Mostly sunny this morning, then becoming partly cloudy later in the day. Our high temperature will be in the upper 70s. And at last check, we had clear skies. It's dropped a bit, 48 degrees in Cleveland, Akron and Canton, 49, and in Mansfield, just 45 degrees.
It's time for your moron moment.
If you could turn back time, what would you do? Well, in a sense, you can. You can look up your very first ever post on Facebook. Open your profile on the web, click the filters button, which is above your own posts, and then go fill in the go-to information, like year, month, day. It may take you some guesswork, but you can browse back to the month and year that you signed up. Mine was October of 2009. After reading some of those posts, you may want to delete them if they're just too cringy, right? And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 8:04 with Moody Radio News.
Yeah, so my husband Jimmy works at Chick-fil-A, and the other day he and one of his coworkers just randomly brought up the show. And so they're chatting about some discussion that we had. And so this guy gives his opinion, his 2 cents on what we were talking about. And Jimmy goes, "Oh, yeah, Daria would agree with you on that." And this guy just looks at him and goes, "How do you know?" Says, "She's my wife."
And he had no idea.
He had no clue.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Seven WCRF, half an hour away from David Mullane of Yost Insurance to answer your Medicare questions. It's open enrollment for Medicare. Text those in now. We're forming a line as we speak.
Yeah.
440-546-2255. Well, there certainly isn't a shortage of things to talk about in terms of international news from a faith perspective. Here to give us an update on a number of issues is our friend Dr. Glenn Deurr. He's professor of international studies at Cedarville University. Welcome back, my friend.
Great to be back with you.
So we'll start by bringing our attention to Israel and Gaza, as we know so much has been happening there for quite a long time, over a year now. The big news recently, Yahya Sinwar from Hamas, one of their top leaders, the New York Times called it a major blow to the group. How big of a deal is that assassination to Hamas?
It can be very significant. It really depends on the circumstance, but the terrorism literature in the academic world suggests that if you can cut the head off the snake, if you can kill the leader of the terrorist movement, generally it really incapacitates it. It depends because terrorism is widespread. It's in different parts of the world. It depends on the organization. Some have a very kind of flat structure, and so if one is killed, others can work elsewhere, or there's not a lot of communication necessarily between different cells, and so they continue. But in a case like Hamas, where it tends to be very hierarchical and there's a leadership, it certainly could be a major blow. We've seen that happen with other terrorist organizations, the neutralization of Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, for example, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi and ISIS, similar type situations where if you can really go after the leader, it can really decimate the terrorist organization. So we'll see, because Hamas has very significant roots. It goes beyond terrorism. It gets into a lot of governance and social services, even within Gaza, even on top of the terrorist activities. But it looks like it's a very significant blow to Hamas.
To what effect, though? I mean, are we seeing any significant faltering or problems with Hamas, or is this just a supposed, leadership problem?
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell right now, because in the fog of war, there's certainly, Sinwar's shadow still casts over Hamas. The expectation to carry out attacks, even mortars and some low-level rockets into Israel, have continued even after Sinwar's death. But the key, I think, is in the next month or two, when there is a leadership void in terms of how Hamas is fighting against the Israeli Defense Forces. I think that's going to be where it becomes more evident. The suggestion is that Mohammed Sinwar, the brother of Yahya Sinwar, will take over Hamas, and he's, by some estimations, equally or even more brutal than his brother, if you can believe it, in terms of the brutality of what was carried out on October the 7th, 2023. So we'll see. But I think this next month, 2 months, will be indicative of Hamas's future and its continued violence or not.
And now we're learning as well of an assassination attempt on Prime Minister Netanyahu from Israel. What do we know about this, and how concerning is it?
Yeah, it's somewhat concerning because it went after his direct residence. He lives in Caesarea, which you can find in the New Testament. Israelis will call it Caesarea, but it's a very beautiful coastal city area. It's actually where the Apostle Paul was imprisoned, and you kind of read it in Scripture, but at the same time, it's right on the Mediterranean. It's actually a very scenic location if you're free. And Netanyahu has a significant compound there. There was an unmanned aerial vehicle that targeted the residence, and Prime Minister Netanyahu said it was an assassination attempt on himself and his wife, Sarah. They were not at the location. They had not been at the residence for several days, but the intelligence from Hezbollah knew enough to go after the residence in particular, knew its location, and thankfully for Netanyahu was not harmed in any way and not anywhere near it. But it is being described as an assassination attempt, given the specificity and the targeting of the Netanyahu family.
Now, you and I have talked for over a year about this on a regular basis, the war in Israel, and we've both wondered how long the Israeli economy can sustain this, as so much of its citizenry is caught up in the war and tourism is basically shut down. How are they doing economically here?
They're doing okay, better than one would expect, because warfare is a guaranteed way to knock a third or even a half of your gross domestic product off. We've seen that in Ukraine, for example. They dipped by about 40% in 2022, and it's a real struggle. The Israeli economy, though, is robust. It is an advanced economy, an industrialized economy. They're into a lot of areas, into the service sector, the high-tech sphere. And so these areas tend to be a bit more insulated when it's in a time of conflict. You noted tourism, though, that can be anywhere from 10 to 15% of their economy, and it's largely closed down. There are some tourists that are still coming. There's still, I've had friends and former students go over to Israel at this time to show solidarity, to spend their money in Israel. So it's still happening, but it's not nearly the numbers that are normal. I think the good news for Israel is it's been able to insulate itself because it's so diversified. It's a lesson from Proverbs to diversify to sixes and to sevens, rather than to put all eggs in one basket that some other countries do. But it is still an economic hit. There's no two ways about it. How long can it last? We've discussed this on air. I think the conflict is still a ways from being over. I don't see it ending immediately. But as I mentioned, now that Yahya Sinwar and Hassan Nasrallah of Hezbollah have been neutralized, then it really will depend on the next layer of leadership in these terrorist organizations as to whether or not conflict continues. But I think the Israeli economy is suffering, certainly in some areas. Even though, as I mentioned, it's insulated. If you're in tourism, if you're reliant on that area, and if you're highly specialized, because often, Israeli tour guides spend at least 2 years training in order to be able to do what they do. And advanced training can take upwards of 7 years to get into the very specific areas of Israeli history. Think all of Old Testament, New Testament, just to be able to describe what's happening in Israel, its history, to Americans or to Europeans who come over to visit. And so that area in particular has been hard hit, and how long it can sustain is a hard guess. But I'm guessing it's only got 6 to 12 more months before people in those areas really need to move to some other area in order to feed their families.
So what's it going to take to end the war in Israel? Like, what does it look like for Israel to say, and we won, it's over?
For in the north with Hezbollah, it really will be a stalemate. We saw that in 2006 in the 34-day war across the summer, where there was an exchange of fire. You're getting into higher-powered rockets and missiles in particular. But at the end, it was a stalemate where they said, okay, Hezbollah's no longer going to fire. Israel's going to accept just, okay, it's a difficult situation in our north. But if we transition to the south with Gaza, it's much more prickly because Hamas has had entrenched positions. They just had this very heinous attack on Israel that Israel never wants to be repeated. But the big question is who governs this area, because Israel was there for a long period of time, withdrew in 2005. Egypt is right next door, but it really doesn't want to govern it. And so who governs? Is it Israel in a longer term kind of occupation of the area? Or is it a Palestinian group that hasn't really risen? There's no real alternative at this stage. And so the default then is Hamas, and no one really wants Hamas to remain in power. It will not give the Israelis any major security guarantee. So that's the big question, is who governs Gaza moving forward? And until that question is answered, there's going to be some level of conflict. It may be a much lower intensity conflict, and as such, I think things will return to normal in Israel. But it's still a huge question of A, getting to a ceasefire, B, of who governs, and then the Israeli Defense Force has said any negotiation, it needs corridors through Gaza so that it can root out Hamas at a moment's notice. If they have the intelligence of, there are missiles being stored in this location, the Israeli Defense Forces want to get there, and Hamas has repeatedly denied that in negotiations. And then finally, there are still at least 50 plus hostages. And until those hostages are returned, or, some have been reported dead and their bodies returned to Israel, that's just a non-starter as well. So there's still a number of major hurdles until Gaza is settled.
Well, it's 8:18. Our guest is Dr. Glenn Deurr here on Mornings with Brian on WCRF. He's professor of international studies at Cedarville University. More global issues to discuss. We'll do so here in just a few minutes.
In desperate situations,
Catastrophic
especially in isolated areas,
War raging around.
emergency supplies are often airdropped to those in need.
Multiple countries are sending food into the Strip through alternative methods, including airdrops.
And when there is a desperate
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Lincoln Brewster on Moody Radio Cleveland, where it's now 8:23. Our guest is Dr. Glenn Deurr, professor of international studies at Cedarville University, talking about various issues around the globe for us to know about as followers of Christ. Here's one for you never thought you'd hear. Canada's real mad at India, I guess. You've got to explain this one. I had to look it up. It's fascinating.
Your listening area goes into southern Ontario, so maybe they're very familiar with this topic. But for many Americans, it's just what on earth? Because here you have two democratic countries that follow the rule of law, and they are just intensely mad at each other. The Trudeau government of Canada has accused the Indian government of ordering an assassination of a Canadian man of Indian background in the summer of 2023. And the Indian government under Prime Minister Narendra Modi has responded very angrily, has said, Canada hasn't provided any evidence. It's harbored terrorists against our country for a long period of time, and we're just not going to take this anymore. And so they've expelled their respective ambassadors and high commissioners to each country and many of the other top diplomats. And it has led to a major war of words, a breakdown between countries, and a rising nationalism in India. Just they're very, very angry at Canadians, and the instruction is that Canadians are on high alert in New Delhi because there are reports of potential attacks against Canadians that have been threatened. And like I said, this goes back to the summer of 2023. So to dig into it a bit more, the man in question is Hardeep Singh Najjar. He was from India originally and is of a Sikh background, so the Sikh faith. And he is was the leader of a movement called to create an independent Khalistan. That is it would be a new country from within India as a homeland for Sikhs, the religious group. And so this is a movement that was very popular in the 1960s, but especially in the 1970s and 1980s. The Indian government clamped down upon it, and it's a reason why many Sikhs moved to the United States, to Canada, to the United Kingdom, to a range of different countries. And while the Khalistan movement has petered out for the most part, there are still leaders of it and people that purport it in North America, in Europe. And the report is that India hired a set of thugs through their intelligence unit to assassinate Mr. Najjar in the outskirts of Vancouver. And the Canadian government, through the RCMP, you've heard of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, but also CSIS, which is their version of the CIA, has said they've got Loctite evidence that the Indian government is directly behind the assassination of a Canadian citizen of Indian background on Canadian territory. And India has responded, you have not given us any evidence of this, and we are appalled by this international outcome. And it's really led to some deep problems between countries.
So where does this go? I mean, I've never heard of anyone being mad at Canada, let alone they withdrew their ambassadors. Is that what you said?
Yes. And
what in the world? Where's this going?
And on the world stage, Modi and Trudeau had a very, very frosty handshake. Modi had some very terse words for Trudeau openly and publicly. Trudeau has never shied away from speaking out to leaders of China, India, and others, but has been rebuked very heavily by all of them. It is worth noting that the South Asian community in Canada, Canada's population is roughly around 41 million, and the South Asian population is approaching 1 million. Some major cities have large populations of people from Indian descent. And so it has really, it's like I said, it's something that began in 2023, looked like it was going away, and still some 15 months later has popped up again and is creating a very angry reaction between countries. The Indian media in particular is 100% seemingly behind Modi and has become very, very angry at Canada. And it's worth noting that the highest number of Canadian international students studying at Canadian colleges and universities, they come from India. And so there's a big relationship between countries, but it is at a low point, and it's strange between two democratic traditional allies.
How are Canadians of Indian descent responding to this tension?
It really depends on the religious side of it. So close to 50% of Canadians of Indian background are from the Sikh community, and they're heavily behind Canada. They're thankful to Trudeau. Canada, by the way, is probably entering its own election season very, very soon. And so this plays into it. And it's a reason why I think it will continue for a while. But those of Hindu background are heavily in favor of Modi generally, and are very, very angry at the way that the Trudeau government has painted India and has not yet released a lot of information on exactly what happened. Indians of Christian background are certainly a much more split on all of this. There's a divide in the Christian community, which is a significant portion of India's diaspora in Canada. And so it really depends on those lines, but it has led to Indians in Canada actually engaging in brawls against one another over this. Not to say that it's massive or widespread or in significant areas, but the fact that police are being called to stop brawls between people in the Indian diaspora in Canada fighting over this tells you that it's ramped up significantly.
So now I feel weird asking this, but is there any risk of like armed conflict between India and Canada? I mean, I'm not sure where this goes next after you withdraw ambassadors.
It's highly unlikely, because I've asked myself the same question, and clearly there's a massive geographic distance that's a lot more helpful. But India's nationalism has risen very, very heavily in the last decade under Modi. They've had clashes with China along a disputed border that have really led to a number of deaths, and that has not been widely reported in the West. And so that's become an issue. But the concern, I think, is the respective citizens in each other's countries. If Canadians are attacked in India or Indians are attacked directly in Canada or something along those lines, both seem unlikely, but it's also a possibility right now, given the anger in the media and in governing circles against one another. It's hard to imagine how there'd be some level of conflict. But in talking about Israel and Iran, as we did earlier, seeing drone strikes and things of that nature at least gives us the imagination of what could happen. I still see it as a very, very, very unlikely. It's hard to fathom.
Yeah.
But the fact that this conversation, this dispute has gone on for over 15 months tells me that it hasn't gone away yet. And it will resurface with the Canadian election. It's going to be an election issue when Trudeau is looking for another term in office. And that's likely to happen. Well, it's going to happen one way or another within the next year. But my estimation is that the election will be called early in Canada. So sometime very, very late 2024 or early 2025.
Well, it's been another great discussion with our friend Dr. Glenn Deurr, professor of international studies at Cedarville University. For more information, it's simple to find. Go to cedarville.edu. Again, cedarville.edu. Thanks, my friend. I always appreciate your expertise.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Have a great day to you and to your listeners.
It's now 8:32. Coming up after this break, our friend David Mullane from Yost Insurance will answer your Medicare questions. Already got a line forming.
Good.
But not many people in line. You've got a chance to get your question answered about Medicare. But now's the time. Call or text right now with your Medicare questions for David Mullane of Yost Insurance. 440-546-2255. Again, 440-546-2255.
I think we can all agree there is no greater gift that any of us could receive. To have the burden of our sin lifted off our shoulders and taken away, never to be placed back upon us.
Here is Jonathan Griffiths with today's Moment of Truth.
We all know the experience of carrying a burden of guilt. We know what it is to be fully convinced that we are in the wrong, that we have done wrong, that we deserve to face consequences for our wrongdoing. We know what it is, don't we, to regret that which we have done. to wish for all the world that we had done things differently, that we could have a do-over. But to know with sadness that there's no going back, there's no undoing it. We know what it is to be aware of our guilt before God. Even those who don't openly acknowledge God, I would suggest, have this inner sense of awareness and accountability before Him. We know what it is to fear what the future would hold were we held to account for our crimes. We know what it is to bear guilt, to labor under the weight of our sin, and many will be here today feeling something of a weight of that. For some among us, the weight of that guilt will be a crushing thing. You may not speak of it to others, you may try and bury it, but the guilt and the weight of sin, it's always there. You feel it pressing down upon you. And the wonder of the gospel is that Jesus, the guiltless one, came and paid the price of our sin in full when He died at the cross. He dealt with it fully, and justice was satisfied.
It's our desire here at Moment of Truth with Jonathan Griffiths that God's Word would go out into the nations and make disciples and empower Christians. To learn more, visit our website, encounterthetruth.org. That's encounterthetruth.org.
If you are 65 or older, you know this, inflation.
I think you got to realize God loves you, has a plan for your life. He's put you in this position. And if He's put you here, don't take yourself out just by your own self-doubt. If He doesn't want you operating this board, in my case, then He would make it evident, and Josh would say, look, we've had enough of your mistakes. You're out, buddy. We'll get somebody younger and more capable.
Oh, you stop this.
Pitch you out to the old folks' home.
We don't receive that, Ron.
We don't receive that. That's the imposter syndrome talking. Pastor, how do you battle imposter syndrome?
Prayer, lots of prayer. I'm ultimately where I'm at because this is what God wants me to be. Try to stay focused on the fact that regardless of what I may feel from a workspace standpoint, I know the work that I put in. So it's like it creeps in, but it's also not. You know how you have I feel like you can have imposter syndrome because you really shouldn't be in the room and people think you should be in the room, and then you can have imposter syndrome and it's like, no, but I actually should be in the room, but the enemy's just in my brain. And just trying to remind myself okay, God got me, and wait, I know I put this.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Good morning. This is WCRF, Mornings with Brian. And boy, Lauren's back tomorrow, so we're excited about that. We're also excited that we get a chance to get your Medicare questions answered. This is the time. Because we know you don't understand it. Nobody does. Goodness gracious, it's Medicare. What sense does it make? Part A, B, C, X, Y, Z, nobody knows. Except David Mullane.
Yep.
And others in his profession, of course.
Right.
David Mullane is Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Medicare at Yost Insurance. He's here to answer your questions. Call or text with him right now, 440-546-2255. Welcome back, David. You know what?
Ooh.
You're sounding like a computer. So there's something with our little phone system here that's awkward, which you sound great as a computer. Reminds me of Max Headroom back in the day, kind of. Remember that guy, Ron?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so let's do this. We're going to take an early break, and we're going to come back, and we'll try a connection a different way. And we'll be back to get your Medicare questions answered here in just a minute. Again, 440-5.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
You're listening to WCRF, Moody Radio Cleveland. Mornings with Brian, it's 8:46. And Ron and Daria have now spun the plates, pushed the buttons, flipped things upside down, then back right side up again, turned them on and off. And I think we have all things set to go to get your Medicare questions answered from our friend David Mullane of Yost Insurance. You set to go, David?
I hope so. Can you hear me better?
Oh, you sound fantastic. Less computery, which is kind of the goal, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. I don't want to sound like a robot, even though we say the same things over and over again this time of year. We don't want to be robotic at all, right?
Mm-hmm. That's true. And you say things a lot over and over again because it's open enrollment period. What does that mean?
So from October 15th through December 7th, anybody that currently has either a Medicare Advantage plan or a prescription drug plan through Medicare, they have the ability to shop. So this is like a 2.5-month Black Friday, if you will, where people can review their plan options against anything available that's in the market, and any changes that they make during this window of time would go into effect January 1st. And the reason we have this time period is the carriers can change their plans for the upcoming year. They can change their formulary, they can change their network. And so this window of time the government has in place so that people can learn about those plans. Like everybody that has a plan should get an annual notice of change letter. And then once they look at that, they have the ability to go out and look at other options to make sure that they get the coverage that meets their needs the best.
Any other tips you have for folks in terms of what to look for this year as they're going through the open enrollment period?
Yeah, I think it's really important with each person, like I said, is going to get that letter from their current company, and it should show what the changes are going to be from this year till next year. And that's great because our clients will circle, highlight, bring that in and ask us questions about it. The one thing those letters do not show, though, is detailed prescription pricing estimates. And that's something that your local agent is going to be able to sit down with you and really give you a good sense in terms of an estimate of what your current prescriptions might cost on the plan that you're on, or really any of the other many dozens of plans that are available in our area for all of 2025. And that's a real important piece of our retirement planning is knowing how much our medical care is going to cost in advance of each year.
Again, David Mullane of Yost Insurance is with us. It's 8:49 on WCRF, ready to answer your Medicare questions. Better get them in before it's too late. 440-546-2255. Daria, what's the first one?
I need to sign up my mom for Medicaid. Is there a service that can help walk me through the process?
Yeah, so Medicaid is a little bit different than Medicare. And with Medicaid, you have to work through the state of Ohio's Medicaid office. And the process isn't very difficult. It's just an application that you fill out. You can find that online if you just Google Ohio Medicaid. And the local people that generally help with that would be your county job and family services office. So anybody who's on Medicaid is assigned a caseworker and sort of a point of contact to help you with that throughout the year. But it's a relatively simple application. And like I said, you can find that pretty readily available online.
Now, in the event this particular individual meant Medicare, and because those two are so close together, I don't know who named them that. But what's the process of getting someone enrolled into Medicare?
Yeah, really great question, Brian. And you're right. A lot of people do confuse the two of them. And as you said, I don't know why they're named so closely together. So Medicaid, you're going to apply for at the state, and Medicare, you apply for through the Office of Social Security. And that is something that most licensed agents that do what I do can work with you on, that initial Medicare Part A and or Part B application. There's a variety of ways that we can do that. We can do that online. We can do that over a phone meeting with Social Security, or we can also do that in person at our local Social Security office. And when we want to do that, if we're turning 65 and we want to sign up for Medicare, we want to start going through that process about 3 months before the month of our 65th birthday, okay? So that's kind of how that works.
All right, next question. Someone said, I'm 62. At what age do I have to sign up for Medicare, and is it optional, or do I have to take it?
So you do not really need to sign up for Medicare until you need it, actually. So we get a lot of questions when I'm on with you guys about, hey, I'm going to continue to work past 65, and I have credible coverage through my employer. Many of those people might take Part A and continue to work, and they'll defer Part B until they are ready to leave that employer coverage, or maybe even their spouse is ready to retire. So there's a variety of situations that you can run into. Most people who need health care coverage are going to want to sign up at age 65, like I said earlier, 3 months or so before that birthday. Because if you don't have credible health coverage and you don't sign up for Medicare at age 65, there are a series of late enrollment penalties that the government could assess you, because really it's there to protect people from going into retirement and not having any health care coverage. So there's a wide range of people that we interact with in situations, and really there's a pathway for everybody based on your unique needs.
All right. Again, 440-546-2255. We got your Medicare questions here. Daria, what's next?
I receive Medicare Parts A and B through Medicaid Social Security Disability. Do I need to renew my Medicare every year?
So you do not. Your Medicare, once you're on it, you're on it. And so you don't have to renew, you don't have to reapply. And the same is true with your plans. So if you have a Medicare supplement plan or a Medicare Advantage plan or a Medicare prescription drug plan, all of those plans will automatically continue in 2025, and you really don't need to do anything about that. The one exception would be if your plan left the market. So right now in Ohio, we have a few prescription providers or prescription carriers who have left that market. So you might get a letter from that carrier that says, we're no longer going to be offering these plans in January of 2025. In that case, you would have to make a change, but generally speaking, your plan will roll over from year to year, which is a good thing, but from my perspective, it's also a bad thing, because sometimes we miss out on those opportunities to better our coverage because we sit back and just let that plan continue to roll over every year.
All right, let's go now to the phones. We've got David in Akron. David, what's your question for David Mullane of Yost Insurance?
Yeah, David, I think that last person just answered my question. Does it roll over, or do I have to renew anything? Because I've been on Medicare for a while and everything's okay. I mean, like you said, does it roll over or what?
Yeah, David, generally speaking, your current plans will roll over in January. And this time of year is nothing to panic about. It just gives you that opportunity to look at your current plan and look at any other plans that might provide you comparable or potentially improved coverage for 2025.
And I would imagine every couple of years, even if you seem happy with your coverage, it would be good to go over it with a professional, I'd imagine, right? Just to make sure you're getting the best deal possible.
Yeah, 100%, Brian. And just an observation from me being in the industry for as long as I have, I see a lot of people hesitant to shop their health insurance plan in retirement. And I assume that comes from the fact that many of us through our working years got our insurance through an employer. And we never really got to shop for that, right? So it's not something that we're accustomed to. But in retirement, I think it really is to the benefit of a lot of people, especially people that have a long list of prescription medications or high needs, and they're really utilizing the benefits of the plan. I think there's tremendous value in having that review in person with a local agent this time of year.
All right, Daria, what's next?
I'm 67, employed full-time at a corporation. My health insurance is through Medicare. Is it beneficial to enroll with the company's plan?
So with that, it really comes down to doing a side-by-side, what I would call a cost-benefit analysis. We want to pick the coverage option that gives you the most coverage, the coverage that is most closely aligned to your specific needs, and at the best cost. And there are some situations where some people carry both simultaneously, and one is primary and one is secondary. So when you have that employer plan, I think it's crucial to sit down and do that comparative analysis and then to select the right pathway based on, what that analysis reveals. It's definitely not a clear-cut answer. And I know I'm being vague, but it's just because there's so many different employer plans, and we never want, like the agents that I train, I never want our agents taking someone off an employer plan that gives them more benefits and better coverage for less money than what their Medicare option might be. but sometimes it is to the benefit to leave that employer plan.
Yeah, it really does depend on that employer plan. Some places offer incredible insurance that can't be compared. Others leave a lot wanting. So I appreciate that.
Without a doubt.
We got time for another question or two here. What's up next, Daria?
How do I find an agent? I'm specifically looking for a Christian.
So if you connect with us through Moody Radio, we will make sure to get you with somebody who shares those beliefs and will take really good care of you.
Yeah, you can just text us, 440-546-2255, 440-546-2255. And if Yost Insurance isn't nearby, I know they'll connect you to somebody who can take good care of you. All right, Daria, what's next?
Is traditional Medicare with a supplement considered the Cadillac of Medicare plans?
Now, that right there is what we would call a loaded question. It certainly has its really positive aspects. A traditional Medicare supplement plan gives you really almost unlimited access to care at medical facilities and doctors throughout the U.S. It does not have a network, and so generally, not always, but generally, any facility provider that accepts Medicare would be someone that you could go to. But that being said, and I know, like I said, I don't want to sound robotic, but we repeat this very often, all of the options have merit, and all of them have pitfalls. And so what it should come down to is not an agent who only represents one or two plans and is just putting people in what they're comfortable with. It should come down to you meeting with an agent who represents all of the plans in your area and is taking the time to get to know you and to develop a relationship with you that leads you to the option that is most closely associated with your specific needs. Some things cost more, and sometimes people choose those thinking that it's the only option, when in fact, in their case, there might be a less expensive option that more closely meets their needs. So a lot of people do say that, and I can't argue that MedSup coverage is really robust, and it does give you that access. But to say it's the Cadillac, I really think it depends on that individual.
Again, David Mullane is Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Medicare with Yost Insurance Agency. Joins us here on Mornings with Brian on WCRF regularly to answer your Medicare questions. If you want to reach out to Yost Insurance, again, the best way is come to us. You can text us, send us an email, go on the internet, whatever you're going to do, put a comment on Facebook. We'll love to connect you with them. David, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure, Brian. And I know that my segment can be a little bit boring because Medicare is not super fun. So I'm going to work with your team. I'm going to challenge you to some kind of contest for the next time I come on, all right?
Okay, well, I feel bad for you because I already know you're going to lose. So
I think I'm going to win.
Nope.
I think I'm getting the bell, you're getting the buzzer. That's my personal thought.
Oh, my.
Wow, let me just see here.
Shots fired.
Let's see. Oh, sorry. It's not going to happen. But that'll be fun. We'll do that next time, David. God bless you, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Have a great day, guys.
All right, before we go, I want to tip my imaginary cap to one Daria Swisher on our team. People don't know this, but she was behind the scenes answering phones, putting people on hold, talking on the radio, taking text messages. You were incredible, Daria. That
Well,
was
thank you.
a sight to be seen. Thank you for your hard work.
No problem.
Lauren is back tomorrow, so I guess I'll have to behave.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a fun couple of days, though, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give her a full report when she gets back.
Oh, please, just you could just give a frosty one, like a real nice syrupy one, right? Oh, no. Lauren's back tomorrow. For now, here's J.D. Greer.